Well, welcome to this, the third of our sessions on our personal story of 50 years in the middle part of Africa in DR Congo.
Our priority from the beginning has been training. And at first it was the training of registered nurses in a 4-year program, and their diploma was equivalent to finishing high school. But in the 90s, in our absence, a college level was opened, requiring students to finish high school and then spend 3 years to get a graduate diploma in nursing or community health. And that college has expanded greatly since the first graduates were in 1997, and there are now over 1,000 students in the college and close to 300 graduates each year.
So this is the program that you've seen already. We started off with Why in Africa, then last week orientation, and today we're talking about training and education. And Nancy has already given you an introduction to that. Our priority has been to try and hand over to young Congolese students that some of the knowledge and experience that we as two doctors have gained over the years.
Initially, we favored boys, young men, since most women in Africa traditionally have many children, need to feed the family, and are responsible to cultivate a field and fetch water and look after their family.
We have seen men there in the market, their wives are around shopping and doing all the necessary for the home, and they are sitting in a small lounge drinking locally made alcohol.
It used to be that only the boys got an education because they were the priority. They would look after the parents in their old age. But over time, there has been an increase in the number of women, and in the graduate college where we teach, the women now represent 68% of the student body. 2 of 25 students were women in the first class we accepted, and those 2 failed out after the first year, and so we were left with this class of young men.
You'll probably see this slide a few more times. It's an old slide, it's not terribly clear, but these are some of the men in the first class that we ever accepted, and we know all of them by name, and we know what they're doing right to this day. It's been very exciting to follow them over the years. If I just give you some of the names, on the far right there, the tallest of all is Bakiegomu. He is now fairly elderly, suffers from gout, has been managing a small hospital in a large town of Isiro, and active member of the church there. Next to him, with a big smile, is Mangbukele. He became a tribal chief. His father was a chief, and of all his 72 brothers and sisters, he was chosen to be the successor to his father. He then became a provincial member of parliament, and then became vice governor of one of the provinces of Congo. Next to him is Kobinama, one of the few who's deceased, having gone to Senegal and done some training in dentistry. Next to him is Kiusa, who was first in the class, a very bright fellow who's running a nursing training school down south in Owicha.
Next is Undahoso, who has taken several postgraduate courses in nursing, including 3 years in Belgium, and he is the academic dean of the college where we teach. Next is Trekabo, who applied for work with, well, he worked at several outposts, shall we say, small health centers first, but then applied for a job with Medair in Bunya. That's their main location, but he often went out on a motorbike for 2 or 3 weeks to see how small health centers were doing, and then came back and had a week to write his report before going out on another excursion. He's recently retired. Owita went only about 40 kilometers west of Nyankundi to Irumu and managed a health center there for many years. But as he approached retirement age, he decided to move back to his tribal area right up in the north.
And the last one on the end there is Lebu. We lost touch of him for a very long time, but quite recently he came back and said that he's running a health center in Dungu up in the north of Congo, and he's an elder in his local church. So these fellows bring back many happy memories for us. Just a little history of schooling in Congo. From 1908, when King Leopold handed the Congo over to the Belgian government, right up until independence in 1960, the Belgian government really wasn't very interested in schooling. It continued the very informal methods that Leopold II had started. And at one stage, it was even the policy of the Belgians not to educate the Africans.
Can you tell us just a little bit more about what you mean by the informal method?
Well, virtually nothing. Set up, encouraging people to learn to read and write, but not much more than that.
Thank you.
But because there was no education going on, the churches took responsibility, Protestant churches, Catholic churches, and right up to today, 90% of primary and secondary schools are run by the churches, but funded by the government. There was a stage back in the late 70s when the government took the schools over completely, but found they couldn't run the system. And so they handed them, after 2 years, they handed them back to the churches. And there will be different regional offices set up by different churches to administer schools in any one particular area. So here is a small primary school. Everybody wears uniform, white top and a navy blue shorts or trousers or skirt. And most of the schools are very crowded. There has been some international finance that's been given to the government, and primary and secondary school education is supposed to be free, but there are always charges made locally because money is not trickling down from Kinshasa.
I believe Tshisekedi said only primary school should be free, and secondary school people have to pay.
The universities similarly were set up by the churches. University in Kinshasa was Catholic, Kisangani was Protestant, Lumumbashi was Kimbanguist, which is a form of Christianity started by a Congolese fellow, strong on prohibition of alcohol and smoking, but rather a way out sect of Christianity. But these three big universities are now being taken over by the state and are run entirely as state universities. There are at least 67 other universities in DRC. That's to say, other church universities or private universities or Korean universities, various individuals and organizations have started universities. There's very little control of how universities are run. and it's disappointing to know that there are no Congo universities in the list of the best 100 universities in Africa. This is the university in Kinshasa, built originally by the Belgians, now run by the state. But this is probably the best university in Congo. Now,
In 1960, 64, when Dr. Helen Roseveare started working at a little village hospital called Nebobongo in 1953, 54. And her goal was to use some of the local men to be nursing assistants, including one particular young man who was eager to learn by the name of John Mangadima. And she ran that school from around 54, 55 through independence at 1960 and up to the Simba Rebellion in 1964. However, in 64, everything stopped and Helen was evacuated and very little care was given.
This is Helen's school as it appears now in Nebobongo. It's still continuing to run there. It's a lower level nursing college, not a college level. You just need to have 4 years of secondary school in order to come to this nursing college.
We'd call it the registered nursing level.
When Helen came back after the rebellion, the Simba Rebellion, where she was very badly treated, she was only allowed back to a place like Nebobongo, provided they had an airstrip so that she could be evacuated in case there was a further insecurity. And the station also had to have a radio so that there could be regular communication should there be further troubles. But with those two provisos, Helen went back to Nebobongo, but then in 1965, Dr. Becker started this brand new medical work at a place called Nyankundi, and Helen was invited to come to Nyankundi to concentrate entirely on the training program. Dr. Becker invited other doctors from other hospitals to come as well so that they could carry on the regular medical work, and Helen was to be involved uniquely in the training program. This is a photograph taken in 1973. You can see again the airstrip, had to have an airstrip, and there was a radio here for good communication. And the buildings, the longer buildings in this little valley are the Nyankundi Centre Médical Évangélique Hospital. Welcome sign as you drive up. No asphalted roads in this part of the world, and the roads can get pretty muddy after rain, but this is the main entrance into the hospital. Just simple grass-roofed houses roundabout. And you've seen pictures of the nursing college at Nyankundi before. The original foundation when Nancy went there first off, and then the building going on, and now here it is complete. Again, behind the hostel where the students can live, but in grass roof, mud walled houses, and they were soon replaced as soon as we arrived, virtually, by modern brick buildings. And again, some of our first year students are looking studious, which is not always what the way they looked.
Well, they were commendable for their studiousness, but they were also very good on the football field. This is oh yeah, Bacchio Gomo, right in the middle there. He was the tallest one, and they used to call him Seigneur, which can be translated Lord, because he was just the biggest fellow. But Mang Bukele on his left was the smallest fellow, so he became the referee. So they love their football time just as much as their studies.
Here is a Japanese lab technician who was with us and still is at Nyankudi right to today. There she is teaching students how to use a microscope. Microscope extremely important for diseases like malaria and intestinal worms. Very simple tests, but very, very useful.
Well, Catskill came in 74 and is still there today. So that makes 50 years. Another one of our colleagues was Dr. Bob Watt, a pharmacist from the USA. And not only did he run the pharmacy, there was a central pharmacy with a big stock of medicines. And then day by day, the hospital could request what they needed, but other hospitals could request what they needed as well. So he was supplying about 5 hospitals with their needs. And he took his turn teaching in the classroom as well. I thoroughly enjoyed my classes, teaching general medicine, which included a general physical exam. And we found a willing volunteer for teaching chest diseases. Although on another day when I had only men, I took them to the assembly hall and had them take their shirts off and examine one another, just to be certain what the normal chest really sounded like.
Time as teachers in Congo has been a time of constantly seeking different practical experiences that we can give the students, not just to stand up and lecture them, but to do some group work, to do other practical experiences, going out into the community and doing some community measurements in order to make the program as interesting and as eye-catching as possible. Again, another picture of the school, and towards you, the closest building there is the refectory. And our students came from all over. They're not so much now. Most of our students in the present college, which we'll be showing you shortly, most of them come from Bunia, and the school is now situated in Bunia. But initially, we had students coming by road, by plane, from all over the northeast corner of Congo. We needed to provide them with housing and with food. And that was what caused us the most headaches, getting firewood to cook their food, buying food in quantity, employing 3 cooks in order to provide food for them every day. Here is one of our cooks, Adaba. And another one of our 3 cooks.
Call him Bokeh.
And he was a trombone player and used to play hymn tunes in the church from time to time. Firewood. We've had times when we bought firewood from local people. They can bring it in, and that wood will be used for
Cooking.
cooking.
Well, what are you doing in the middle of that pile of firewood?
Probably distributing money for the people who've been bringing in this firewood. We had a very extensive social program. This is musical chairs, one Saturday evening. Most Saturday evening or Saturdays, something or other was going on. Either it was a football match, or it was a games evening, or it was a musical evening, or films. We had quite a series of events. We're not doing nearly as much as that now. Of course, students are hurrying home when they finished their studies in Bunya. But here in Nyankundi, where the students were coming from afar, were living on site, we had a very extensive Saturday program for them. Saturday mornings was always cleaning out the dormitory and elsewhere in the school, washing the floor. Then the afternoon might be a football match and some other activity in the evening. This is come and sit in my chair. No, this is musical chairs, where we remove a chair every now and then when the music stops. And the Congolese are extremely musical, and you just have to advertise a soirée musicale, and folk will be brave enough to come and sing a solo, or a group like this with a guitar singing in the evening.
They're quite capable of singing in 3 or 4 part harmony as well, which I think is quite amazing. None of them will have had any music lessons. It's just inborn in them to hear the rhythm and hear the harmony. Ah, the football field, Lebu, out there practicing, I guess.
You can see that the football field is not always flat and it's not always nicely mown, but you take what you can get. And we took a team on the truck out to a local village and played just the local team in the village from time to time.
There they are in their uniforms. And I think it was a Swiss nurse who knitted all the red and black socks for them because there was no such thing on the market in those days. And here's the one on the lower left who is still with us. He's the academic dean of the nursing college in Bunya. And the little referee who on the right, who became the vice governor of his province. And 3 over from him is Aaron, who is the director of nursing for our hospital in Bunya. So we are happy to see that this group, our investment was worth it, shall we say, because we gave them all we possibly could, taught them all we knew, and they have continued for their whole career to make a contribution in Congo.
On the far left is Hank Shoemaker, Australian, who was a lab technician, worked with Catsko in the lab, but he got interested in becoming the goalkeeper for the team, and they appreciated his size there in goal. Here's Mang Bukele. You can't quite see his head here. Sorry about that. But he's the fellow who became a member of provincial parliament, became a chief, a tribal chief, member of provincial parliament, and ultimately vice governor of his province. So, some stories. Mechanization, that means that you're registered there in Kinshasa, either as a teacher or as a student. Would you believe it? Whether you're Congolese or whether you're expatriate, we got put onto a computer. I'm not sure there was more than one computer, but we were on the computer and we got paid. Would you believe it? All of the expatriates gave their money over to the school, the money that they received from the Congo government, and that money was used for the building program, building the dormitories and houses for the Congolese staff. It's a system that initially worked quite well. Even the students, our early students, received 2 zaires a month, which was just $1, but it was $1, and they were very, very appreciative of that. The system has slowly crumbled. It was crumbling even while we were there. We had an inspector come up from Kisangani once, and he was just complaining to everybody that he was not being paid. He hadn't been mechanized. And he went down to Kinshasa all the way to go and see the fellow who was in charge of the computer and make sure that his name got into the computer and that he got it paid. And he got down there and inquired why it was that he wasn't being paid. And the answer that he got was, well, we've run out of paper. He was explaining this. He said this quite openly to us. He was explaining this to one of his friends down there in Kinshasa. And the friend said, oh, don't you understand? If he says that we have no paper, that means he would like you to bribe him, please. Give him something and he'll put you on the list. It was very useful for me. I was the director of this school. I thought that Nancy was going to be the director of the school. But Helen insisted that I become the director. I think because she had so many difficulties with the young men who she had had a time with when she was in captivity, young men who now made up the majority of students in the school, and possibly she was a little frightened of them from time to time.
And they did not easily accept her authority. Only about 2 months before we arrived, they refused her authority. So that convinced her that it should be you and not me who was the director.
But I want to just say there was something called Service Public, SP Post. I could send a letter down to Kinshasa, free, gratis, and for nothing. And it was very useful. We once had an inspection from Kinshasa. And I asked the inspector, how can you judge between one school and another to know how they're doing? Ah, he said, that's very easy. Just the number of letters that I get from one school or another school tells me how well they're doing. So I made it my first job to make sure that we kept up a very good, active correspondence with Kinshasa the whole time that I was directing the school. But that's not possible now. The postal system has more or less collapsed completely. Every now and then a letter or a parcel comes through and we are extremely amazed that anything has happened. Certainly, you cannot buy any stamps in the post office, and the post office is run just by a couple of ladies these days, but something goes on, but the postal system is virtually non-existent.
However, we do have email. And so reports and for the government can be sent by email. And whether they're downloaded, whether they're read, we don't know. But there is internet connection so that reports can be sent by email.
One of our big challenges was always keeping the boys from the girls. I mean, never any kind of hints of any homosexual behavior, but heterosexual behavior seemed to be fairly common. And we kept the boys on one side of the school and the girls on the other side of the school and tried to prevent them from too much mixing between the two of them.
However, there was the village of Nyankundi, which grew in size, but possibly had 10,000 people. So even if the boys in our school did not mingle with the girls from our school, the boys could go to the local community and find friends among the young women, and to the downfall of quite a number.
I can only remember one girl from the school who became pregnant Maybe there was some more with it.
I remember one in particular as well.
So we've mentioned already the fact that we did have a film projector. We got some films even from the Canadian Embassy down in Kinshasa back in the 70s. Film of the 1972 Olympic Games in Montreal and other films. The kids were absolutely enthralled to see any kind of film that we could show them. This was such a new experience for them. But that film projector was very, very useful. And then football. Football, an excellent way to keep the boys particularly well exercised and sleeping well. And the team, they call themselves Malungi, did extremely well in the province. They got up to the quarterfinals in the provincial competition in 1 year. And everybody was very keen to get into the football team. So this is the small little truck that Helen had bought for the school. And we used this on a number of different outings. We used it to collect firewood for cooking and food. So this little truck was very, very useful. Toyotas seem to do best in our part of the world.
We carefully counted that it was acceptable to put up to 20 students in the back on benches. So that included the football team and a few friends, or for other student outings. We could take 20 at a time in the truck.
We took them to a gold mine. There is gold all over the northeast part of Congo. There was a gold mine that the Belgians had started underground. We went into some of the underground workings and saw a vibrating table where gold dust was being separated out from dirt. It was very interesting for us and for all the students. This gold mine is not functioning anymore. There's no organized gold digging going on in Ituri, in our immediate region around Bunia. But there's a lot of artisanal panning for gold, particularly in all of the streams and rivers in the area. Not that far away, Watsa, there is now a deep open pit for mining of gold. It's an enormous hole in the ground. We'll show it to you in a future slide series. But we did a number of trips with students. This is one of the trips. We're in Kisangani, which was our provincial capital, originally known as Stanleyville. And we're in a dugout canoe, and there's Nancy, and the other white in the canoe is Dr. John Harris, who was a leprosy specialist. And we're going to cross the Congo River, and this is what it looks like, at least 1,500 miles from the ocean. Huge river, middle of a basin with a lot of tropical rainforest and rain. And we're going to go across this river in a dugout canoe. And you can see we don't have a lot of freeboard there, but we have to all sit still. But there's 3 of our students who are with us, and we're going across to a leprosy settlement on the other side without the camp. Leprosy was a disease that used to be horribly feared, and so anybody with leprosy was banished, and in this case, banished to the other side of the river, from Stanleyville and Kisangani. Another expedition was to the highest point in the Blue Mountains, just beside us there in Bunia. And at this point, all the rain that you're behind the students that you're looking at, any rain that falls there will drain down into Lake Albert, which again is just a little distance behind the students, and it will drain from there into the Nile River and out into the Mediterranean. But rain falling on the side where I am taking this photograph will drain down to the Congo River and out into the Atlantic. So this is the watershed between the Zaire River, or Congo River as it's known now, and the Nile on the other side. Another expedition down to Lake Kivu, one of the lakes in the Rift Valley that runs right down the middle of Africa. You can see he's got a outboard motor, and this is a fishing boat, and some nets with floaters on them that he's going to use to catch fish. And here are some of the fish in the foreground that he's caught out of Lake Edward, with pelicans in the background waiting to catch any fish that accidentally fall over the side. We organized a seminar again on this disease of leprosy. Healthcare center workers from all over, including some folk even from Kinshasa, came up for this seminar. Lots of faces that we recognize in that group now. But this was held in the school, and we had invited a special speaker, Dr. Stanley Brown, and there he is to the left of the photograph. He is a leprosy specialist from London, England, and he kindly agreed to come out at his own expense in order to run this seminar for us. And leprosy has been a tremendous success in Central Africa. Very, very few active cases now. What do I mean by active cases? I mean where there are bacteria that are growing and developing in somebody's body. Yes, there are plenty of burnt out cases of leprosy who have anesthetic hands, anesthetic feet, and they're constantly in danger of losing fingers or toes, but they are not infectious in any way at all. What has been the reason for the change? I like to suggest the number one reason is soap and hygiene, but there may be many other factors as well.
Well, starting in 1980, actually, they brought in a multi-drug therapy and felt that if anyone had leprosy, active leprosy, and received 6 months of treatment, they would then be bacteria-free and cured of the infection of leprosy as such, and non-contagious to anybody else, even though they might be left with some deformity. So that's 40 years of treating leprosy actively and getting rid of the bacteria. So it's much harder now to find any new cases.
Here's our wards, very simple rectangular wards, beds on each side. And this is where our students are going to get some practical experience. And there's a couple of students in blue there looking at a patient.
This is Nyankundi Hospital. These are nursing students in the school. So this is the lower level that we taught the first few years that we were there.
Doctors, just two African doctors here. On the right, Dr. Joe Lucy, who we have enjoyed maintaining a lot of contact with. Similarly with Dr. Kambali, who's in the back row there. He's been the senior doctor at Owicha for many years. Nancy and I there in the front row in case you didn't recognize us. And Dr. John Harris in the back on the right, our leprosy specialist there at Nyankundi, who we went over the Congo River with. So the nursing school, which started originally in Nebobongo, then moved to Nyankundi in 1965, it upgraded finally in 1994 to a nursing college. And this is what the college used to look like, offering several different options, not just nursing, but anesthesia, pharmacy, laboratory. And this was the Institut Supérieur de Technique Médicale as it was up until 2002.
However, I think it's important to clarify that the nursing school training registered nurses has continued and still to this day is training registered nurses. And this was a separate enterprise to train graduate nurses. One difference is that they are, oh, well, can we go one further? No.
Yes.
Since they are post-high school, they are not required to wear a uniform. And this makes quite a difference, I found, standing in front of the class. One's very conscious that they are now young adults and not high school students as in the school. So there's the school that remains in Nyankundi, and then there's the college that has developed, and we'll talk about a lot more.
This is what the college looked like in 2004. We had war at Nyankundi in 2002, and the whole place was shut down. It was mined. Nobody lived there for a couple of years. I was able to go back in 2004, and this is what I found. It's all been burnt. All the roofing material has been stolen. And it was a question of really starting again from scratch. So initially, the school moved down to Owicha. We were displaced by war. We'll talk about that in another lecture series. The school moved there first off. This is Owicha, a town in the tropical forest, some way south of Nyankundi, south of Bunia, and this is where the school was housed temporarily. Hôpital Sekavant Owicha. Owicha, a big hospital, and lots of practical experience for our students there. The classroom situation somewhat difficult. And we were given a house down there, and there's Nancy standing outside a red brick house that we occupied for 2-3 years, 4 years altogether. We were down there, but from 2004, some visits up north when the fighting up there had subsided.
That house was actually built in 1945 for a lady who was our colleague for a few years, Vera Thiessen, and the house is still standing today, even though they're in a place that is at risk of small earth tremors, but this house is still standing.
And believe it or not, the house was built with mud as cement, and then there was cement pointing put on the outside. But as soon as you get below that cement lines between the bricks, you'll find that it's just mud holding the bricks together. So we were down there at Owicha, and this is the camp that was slowly erected for other people that had been displaced by war along with us. And again, we'll talk about this in a future presentation. This is a brand new office block that Oicha Hospital had built for their work in the area of Oicha, and it was not being used when we got down there, and they very generously offered this as a place for us to start the nursing college again in while we waited for things to improve up north.
Yes.
These are students who've walked down from Nyankundi, 150 kilometers to the north, because of the war, and were students in the college there in Nyankundi before, and now want to continue their studies down here in Oicha.
The really good news is that Malosi in the yellow shirt has continued on with her profession as a nurse and midwife. And she came back to she graduated from our program as a midwife, but in the early 2000s. But a few years ago, already a married lady with 3 or 4 children, came back to the college and did her licence in midwifery, and is now on staff at the college in Bunya. And she's a very vibrant lady, and we're very thankful for her.
Some folk carried books that they discovered at Nyankundi. Nyankundi had been looted, and doors left wide open, and some library books were salvaged, brought down to Oicha, and we paid people who carried a book, we paid them $5 for a book, and slowly we started to reconstitute a medical library, medical and some Christian books as well. And this is Kasavobu and another gal who are looking after the library there at Oicha.
Well, the day came for the graduation, because one group of the college had been just ready for their final exams when the war broke out in Nyankundi. So within 2 months, we were able to assemble the students and organize a graduation for them. Well, they wrote their exams first, and then we had a graduation. So this was the graduation of 2002, held in Oicha rather than in Nyankundi, where it would normally have been. We also participated in the some events at other colleges, nursing colleges in Beni, and this was the group of assorted professors, shall we call them, teachers, and wearing a proper graduation type uniform was very much a part of the program. There were just hundreds of children displaced by war, and they didn't have a clear idea of what had actually happened to them. They were just there, and many of them surprisingly enjoying life, and we enjoyed seeing them as well.
This is Mount Ruwenzori. We can't see it from up north, Nyankundi or Bunya, except on an exceptionally clear day in the far, far distance. But this is what it looks like closer. This is the highest mountain in what we call the Blue Mountains that separate Congo from Uganda on the other side. And they're 16,000 feet high, but right on the equator. And would you believe it, right on the equator, you could see snow the whole year round. But that snow is melting because of climate change. They say there used to be something like 3 square miles of snow up there about 20 years ago, and today there's only about 1 square mile of snow. So the snow is disappearing off the top of Mount Ruwenzori.
On a clear morning, we could actually see Mount Ruwenzori from our dining room window, and not very often, once a month at the very most, but it was there and just peeked through the clouds and we could see it from our dining room window.
But we were able to move back to Bunia, and this is the school as it was constituted in a private house that we rented, large private house that we rented in Bunia. And there you have all the students from 3 different classes in the college, in the college level nursing program, again, with all of these different options of anesthesia and pharmacy, laboratory, etc. We moved a lot of furniture that we had obtained there in Awicha right in the middle of the forest, lots of wood, and we had chairs made for the school, and they came up in a lorry, unloading them here in Bunia. And we built some new premises for the school. In the background, single-story building, and in the foreground, a 2-level building with some 6 classrooms in it, and this is what we built with the help of some friends in UK and in Canada. Built on a hillside. You could see the stone wall at the back of this closest classroom, holding the earth there of the hillside, and we were able to level it to some extent to put this building, very small little building site that we were able to buy fairly close to the center of town, and to reconstitute our buildings and our college at this point.
In the behind the wall that's painted yellow, there are 2 big classrooms. I would say they can comfortably seat about 60 students in each one. And I do remember teaching many classes in either the left or the right classroom up there. The new building in brick may have had 6 classrooms, but they were much smaller. And I can remember having 30 students crammed into this very first classroom, and it was a bit too crowded for comfort, but we managed.
Another view of the new classrooms and the 2-story building, not hardly visible there on the right. So, as we mentioned before, teaching is not just lecturing in a classroom, but here Nancy is demonstrating an ultrasound machine on a lady there with some of our students and nurses looking on.
It's always a joy to be teaching someone else. It helps each of us to be more certain of what we've actually learned and know and practice if we can translate it into knowledge for somebody else. And an abdominal ultrasound for women is very, very useful. And we did lots of them.
And here's a similar photograph for myself there in the operating room, dealing with an orthopedic case. It's the anesthetist who's leaning over, nurse anesthetist leaning over, making sure that breathing is good under a general anesthetic. And when we did move back to Bunia, this is where we lived. Looks a bit scruffy. It's been painted since this photograph was taken, but this corner of the building was a big single room, and it had a doorway out onto the porch on the side, and I attached a small bathroom there for our use when we were there in this house, and we continue to use that up to this present day. Alongside, we're now on a different site in Bunya that the college has bought. And there was the start of a larger residence there that we completed and made into an administrative block. And then, because we had this large plot of land and we had all of the official papers to say that we owned it, Bread for the World gave us two large sums of money in order to build a proper campus for the nursing college. And here is a large amphitheater that's being built. And various people watching as what do you want to do?
I want to go back. There. One thing that we have learned, having no construction knowledge whatsoever, from what we have watched in Congo, is that the floor, a cement floor, needs to be poured entirely in one continuous action for it to be solid and to really hold. And so there had been an all-night pouring of cement, that is all day, all one day, and through the following night. I think it took them about 26 hours of continuous cement mixing by hand and pouring to pour this floor of the amphitheater. So a very significant accomplishment for the constructors to get the flooring correct.
And so here is the completed amphitheater, seats 400 people, and the school has grown as the accommodation has grown as well. But we do thank Bread for the World for their gift to enable us to construct for this building to be constructed. And there is the amphitheater in use with a large number of students there. So I want to show you a video. I hope that this goes well, but this is just to show you a little bit of teaching of the laboratory. It's in French. We're a bilingual country. I think you'll probably understand what's going on, even if you don't understand all of the commentary. That's not what I wanted, is it? This is what I want. So just a few more pictures of the campus as it looks like today. That's what it looked like a long time ago. When we first built the hospital, you're looking out towards where the nursing college is. You're looking from the present CME hospital, which is largely moved from Nyankundi down to Bunya now. And you're looking across at where the college has been built. This is taken much later on. This is a series of classrooms. And this is what is offered in the college at the moment, either for undergraduate work or for graduate work. A licence corresponds more or less to a master's degree, and you get a master's degree in nursing, in public health, epidemiology, health and development education for health, and the undergraduate courses on the other side. Crest of the school and the motto of the school, science, a good science and a good conscience. Nancy doing some teaching in one of those classrooms, lovely terrazzo floor and blackboard, but again, looking for ways to make the class as interactive as possible, and she prefers a small class so that she can easily get to know people's names and ask questions around as the class goes on. There I am with another fairly small class, but here in a much bigger class, getting the students to form a small group and to discuss a particular problem with each other and come up with some kind of solution to the problem. So it is a challenge to teach. It's a challenge because of the numbers of students. We have more than 1,000 students in the nursing college these days. We are given long hours by Kinshasa in the syllabus as to the time that needs to be given to each of the different subjects. There is supposed to be almost an identical division of theory and practical, but as I say, the syllabus comes from the capital, comes from Kinshasa, and in order to give a diploma which is recognized by the state, we need to follow that syllabus. This is a church school, church college. It's run by the Protestant denomination, well, not by one denomination, but by several different denominations that are working together. 5 different African denominations that work together and actually own this building and form a Assemblée Générale that meets together once a year to discuss how things are going in the school. Big problems of copying one student from another.
Yes, and this could be facilitated by the fact that some of them like to, and some teachers require that they have their homework assignment or have it printed. But if they take it to an office where it can be typed up and printed for them, then that office has a copy of it. So the next student who comes along can simply ask, well, can I have a copy of the last one that you printed out for somebody else? And early in 2024, I noticed that one of my assignments had been heavily copied. 25 out of 36 students had evidence of copying from someone else. So after talking with the class president, I said either I can give them a written exam or I can ask them to do the assignment again. And he felt it was better to give them the responsibility of doing the assignment again. And so they did. And in the second round, I was not able to detect copying as I had in the first round. But the temptation is always there to lean on somebody else and to get it the easiest way possible.
Kinshasa is always wanting to keep up with the West, and the qualifications that they insist on for our teachers are similar to the qualifications that you might need in this part of the world if you were teaching in a similar college. That's to say, of our 16 different options, Kinshasa is asking that each one of them be headed up by a PhD, somebody with a Doctor of Philosophy. That seems to me to be absolutely impossible. We couldn't possibly do that, but we are trying to give teachers the best possible qualifications. Immediate problem at the moment are 9 teachers in the school, and again with 16 options, there's an awful lot of teachers needed, but 9 of our teachers don't have any more than graduate diplomas because they attended the same school years ago and are now teaching there, but with a graduate diploma. And Kinshasa has said they are no longer able to teach. We're insisting that they have a master's degree.
So all of them were offered or made aware of the fact that there was a master's degree at a different university in Kindia. That was an option for them. It was 6 months of online courses and 6 months present in Kindia. But even getting there required 2 airfares, one to the city of Goma and then another airfare from Goma to Kindia, which has a certain cost and a certain inconvenience. But out of all those who were disqualified because they did not have a master's, only 2 were able last March to take up the challenge. And so they've been working since March on the online courses and should be going to Kindu this month to do the 6 months. But of course, that means leaving children, leaving family. It's not an easy decision to make.
Another video for you, if I can find it quickly here.
L'Institut supérieur et des techniques médicales ISTEM Niakoundé à Bunia a procédé au lancement officiel de l'année académique 2022-2023 ce jeudi 5 janvier de l'année en cours. Dans une messe d'accueil organisée par l'aumônerie de cette formation médicale, quelques étudiants qui ont terminé dans les différentes écoles de la province de l'Ituri inscrits pour cette année n'ont pas caché leur sourire et disent être très heureux par la formation supérieure de l'ISTEM Niakoundé.
C'est Samuel Banane Atiaboli. J'ai terminé à l'Institut Nyakasanza, autrement petit collège. Si je suis à l'ISTEM Niakoundé, je suis venu justement continuer mes études. Ce qui m'a motivé, c'est juste faire la nutrition.
Je réponds au Désawadi Moudera Davina. Je viens de Commande. J'ai terminé dans l'Institut Simbiliabou. J'ai demandé, on m'a orienté, on dit que c'est ici il y a la bonne formation.
C'est Batiogo Barik de Kindia. Je suis venu à l'ISTEM Niakoundé compte tenu de la formation qui se passe à l'ISTEM Niakoundé et en regardant aussi la qualité de l'institution. C'est ce qui m'a amené ici. À l'ISTEM Niakoundé, je suis venu faire sage-femme. J'encourage à mes amis de venir étudier à l'ISTEM. On a besoin de devenir meilleur demain.
Par ailleurs, de 6 filières, cette formation médicale passe aux 7 filières. De la même manière, la jeunesse iturienne et de la République démocratique du Congo en général est appelée à s'inscrire à l'ISTEM Niakoundé pour une formation qui porte sa devise « La qualité fait la différence ». Maître Undeoso Okameli Isemunde Kelize.
C'est la rentrée académique. Donc la rentrée académique 2022-2023 s'effectue sur toute l'étendue de la République démocratique du Congo aujourd'hui. Et l'ISTEM n'a pas fait exception à cela et il organise également cette rentrée académique officielle aujourd'hui pour tous ses étudiants. La différence pour cette année, c'est que nous avons en fait commencé une nouvelle filière. Dans les années antérieures, nous avions 6 filières et cette année, nous aurons 7e filière qui est en fait sciences des aliments, nutrition et diététique. Le message important que nous aimerions donner à toute la population, et spécialement à la jeunesse iturienne et congolaise, est qu'ils n'hésitent pas de venir s'inscrire à l'ISTEM Nyakunde, ils ne seront pas déçus. Nous ferons tout ce qui est de notre mieux pour leur assurer un enseignement, une formation de qualité, pour les développer, qu'ils soient en fait des personnes utiles pour notre population.
Pour rappel, 152 étudiants étaient collés, soit 34% au cours de l'année académique 2021-2022 à l'ISTEM Nyakunde.
So here are some of our teachers with an inspector that's come up to find out how the school is going. And this is the total staff of the school at the moment. You've got their teachers, you have their gardeners, one cook, and all of the hygienists, people to sweep, keep it clean, all of the staff, two pastors as well, two chaplains for the school. What are the total number?
About 40.
40 staff, and they all need to be paid, of course. This is a major expense for the school. And the school is very happy to have 1,000 students who are paying fees in order to pay the salaries of all of these people. This is a midwife's class and a mannequin there in the background and various practical exercises going on for future midwives. The library, very extensive now. Here are some of the previous research that students have done in the past, in part for their final degree, and Moseka, the librarian, there in the foreground. You've already seen this entry. They were kind enough to name it after us, but only because we were able to provide the funds in order to buy this site, to buy this property with one single old Belgian house on the side, which is where we live when we're out there. It's a guest house for all the visiting professors. But this is the main entrance to the college. So now you can see how it's changed. This is the college way back in the school way back in 1973, and the bricks for the new building just going up there. And this is what it looks like today. So just a few pictures of the hospital where they get a lot of their practical work for this college, for the ISTEM, practical work for our sister institution, which is the University of Shalom in Bunia. University of Shalom now has a medical faculty. That's to say they're training not just nursing students as we are, but they're training doctors there. And I want to show you a small video of Shalom in just a second. But this is the hospital. I will have shown you already a photograph taken somewhere around about here, looking in this direction, and there is nothing. There's green grass. In 2010, 2008, there was nothing. This has all been built since 2010, and it's all been built because Bunia has been growing enormously in size due to all of the insecurity in the areas around Nyankundi. If it was a very, very clear day, you might be able to see in the far distance, sorry, I got that sign up obscuring your view, but those are the blue mountains that you're looking at in the distance, and Ruwenzori is behind those. But this in the foreground is the hospital and the place where our students can get their practical experience. Land over on the side here belongs to the hospital and will be developed. They're going to be building in just here a new pediatric ward in the distant future, in the near future. They've already put in the cornerstone. The operating room and 2 ward buildings on each side. This is what we call semi-private, individual rooms with 2 beds inside for 1 patient, and they can come and put a chair on the outside here and enjoy the outside if they want to. And then just down the way here is a private pavilion where you have an ensuite bathroom as well. But just some pictures of the University of Shalom, where they're running the
Faculty of Medicine.
This used to be a hotel in quite extensive grounds.
And a golf course.
And a golf course. And now similarly, some 1,000 students in the university in several different faculties. Here's the library with a big computer presence there, as well as lots of books. And here are a couple of the medical students doing an explanation of the human skeleton there at a seminar. There is the total medical student body of Shalom University. And there's one white face right at the back. He was for a while the dean of the medical college, but he works in Montreal, fluent French speaker, and a professor at the University of Montreal. But he has since resigned, and they've been able to find a Congolese who is the dean of the medical school now. So we're going to end up with a video from Shalom University. My wife pointing out some mistakes there in now.
L'université Shalom de Bunia a procédé pour sa première fois à l'ouverture d'une série d'examens pratiques organisés à l'intention de ses étudiants finalistes en faculté de médecine ce vendredi 1er septembre. Après une descente sur terrain à l'hôpital Sémé, place à l'évaluation par le jury constitué de professeurs venus notamment de l'université de Kisangani spécialement pour cette cause. Le professeur Aloronga Jean-Pierre, président du jury, revient ici sur l'essentiel de cette forme d'évaluation.
L'évaluation porte évidemment sur tout ce qu'ils ont eu pendant leur séjour à la faculté de médecine. Après qu'ils aient terminé leur stage clinique, nous avons eu la première partie, nous sommes partis au chevet des malades, nous sommes partis au CME avec les étudiants et ils ont examiné les patients, et ils ont rédigé les rapports, ils sont passés devant le jury, chacun à tour de rôle.
Des étudiants du département de la pédiatrie qui ont pris part à cette évaluation n'ont pas manqué de donner leurs impressions de satisfaction.
Pour l'Université Shalom de Bunia, cette année c'est pour la première fois et c'est un événement, je peux dire commémorable, parce que c'est pour la première fois que l'Université Shalom puisse organiser ce genre d'événement. Nous avons aimé, ça nous a aidé, nous et les cadets qui sont derrière nous, à connaître c'est quoi les jurys. Comment ça se passe à l'Université Shalom de Bunia.
Notons que, outre les étudiants du département de la pédiatrie, des évaluations vont se poursuivre durant 2 jours de plus pour les départements restants.
The first group of medical students to graduate was November 23.
At the moment, Nancy is very involved in providing scholarships to enable teachers to have the qualifications that they need in order to teach at these various institutions.
Yes, well, the government wants everybody to have a PhD. And I have set my limit somewhere around 8 or 9 to sponsor at a time. And they usually do not know the budget that they will have for their 3 years or more of study. And we just take it really 1 month at a time. As they let us know what their expenses are, we pray a lot and ask various friends and individuals to make contributions to our scholarship fund. And we keep moving on.
Here's one of the scholarship recipients, Rona, who's actually our senior finance officer. He is doing a PhD in leadership at the moment in Kenya, spending most of his time in Congo, but going over for courses and doing a lot of study back in Bunia.
His master's was in transformational leadership development, and but he felt he should go on for a PhD.
And here's some of the planning that Nancy has done as to when we're going to try and sponsor different people for further studies. We can't take them all at once, and some of them are shorter courses, some of them are longer courses, but this is just a general guide as to how we are trying to arrange this scholarship program.
One of our scholarship students is Jonathan Dungohangi, and back in 2018, we sent Jonathan and his wife and 3 children to Yaoundé, Cameroon, because we thought he had to do a master's and PhD, but when he applied and they saw his previous credentials, they said, no, you can go straight into a PhD. So we had hopes that it might be a 3-year PhD, and his wife Janine applied for a master's program, and she was able to do her master's in reproductive medicine, and the children continued at school. Eventually, Vicky, their daughter, did a 1-year training program in hotellerie and has really thrived on that. Olivier has grown up 5 years since 2018, and he's a very fluent French speaker and is a delight among the family. Jonathan has written his PhD. He could have defended it in 2002. He was ready, but the university seems to have administrative problems, and as we record, he still does not have a date for defending his PhD thesis.
Parti, on a des amis et des frères qui sont passés par ici. Alors on a profité directement qu'on s'associe et plus il y en avait d'autres qu'on n'a jamais reçus qui sont ici. Alors on a complété un peu le tout. Il y a d'abord le couple Wood.
S'il y a un problème, il doit être directement au médecin directeur pour exprimer ça. Que tu ne vois pas, est-ce qu'il y a un problème? Que de garder ça comme voilà, c'est ce que ça fait. Après l'explication, on peut déjà comprendre que le monsieur
dans la maison entre les mains des acheteurs qui l'ont vendu en Égypte seul. Et puis dans la maison des Potiphar, il a aussi combattu seul. En train de saluer.
Oui, 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 oui. Donc avec le poignet.
Avec le poignet.
Ok, bien, bien, bien.